Let's add some sound. I'd maybe turn down your headset. I'm not too sure how loud the sound's going to come through. I'm hoping it's not too terrible, but I guess we'll find out. So what I want to do is add some different sound components to my bullets. Let's go with my prefabs. Let's start with my bullet here. So I want to think first of all about how I want my game to be designed. Who do I want to be responsible for playing sounds? And in the way I've thought through this simple game in kind of its own little contained system is I'm going to have the bullet make its own sounds. When it appears, it's going to have its own custom like being triggered sound. And then when it hits something, it's going to trigger its own kind of final explosion sound. That's customized to the bullet type because a bullet should sound different than a laser. So I'm going to let them know about their own sounds. Then the gun doesn't have to care. The muzzle and the gun don't have to care about the sounds at all. That's all set up in the prefabs of the objects themselves. So what I'm going to be doing for this is creating something called a audio source. And this is a component that allows me to choose some settings, a whole bunch of different stuff about sound settings that you can play around with. If you know more about sound editing, you can maybe even play with some of this stuff. You even have a loop option, which we definitely do not want to enable for bullet sounds. That would be for like music and different types of like birds chirping sound effects and beautiful things, not like explosion-y bullet fire. That would be pretty obnoxious very fast. So in this audio source, we want to actually connect an audio clip to this. That we have the setting, play on awake, a sound that will automatically play when this object pops into existence. So I have already prepackaged some sounds, and I think for this one, I wanted the handgun sound to play when this bullet appears. And all I have to do is add this component and attach a sound to it, and I should be hearing it when I fire. Brace your ears. Perfect. Works just fine. But there's no actual resulting sound that happens when it hits it hits the wall or anything that it collides with. So I need to actually add something to this to have it process the fact that it plays a sound when it hits. So we need to be thinking about what sound. First of all, you might want to explore some of the assets. There are asset store asset packs that allow us to download all sorts of different sound effects. There's some great compilations, or you can even just download from the internet in general. I have some ones prepackaged here. I'm going to enable in my ammo manager some generalized functionality to play specialized sound effects on hit for all of my different game objects that implement this script. So ammo manager, any type of ammo can have a custom sound. So what I'm going to be adding here is an audio clip type object. I'm going to call this the explosion sound because that's what I want it to be, or kind of the sound on hit. Maybe I would have called this potentially. Not going to mess with my transform at all, but on collision, this is where I want my sound to be triggered. And buried in here, before I destroy my game object, I want to also add some information about sound. So how am I going to do this? Well, I actually need to use, well, I'll show you in a sec here. There's a couple options. We're going to start by trying this one. My audio source component plays this audio clip when it runs, but I can also use this component to play other audio clips. So what I'm actually going to do is get access to this audio source. I'm going to show you a different way to do this. I could build an audio source up here that then I just connect it in place to my script, but then I have to do that for every single different ammo object. And connecting it all, maybe I forget sometime. So what? Let's have the connection made automatically through the script. And often this is the better way to connect things. It's a little bit more texty, a little bit less UI-ish. So some of you might prefer to use the UI connections. Great. Some of you might prefer to use the coding strategies. Here's how we connect things using code. I'm going to create this audio source. I'm going to call it just source. And I am going to do a manual search for a component. I'm going to search my script for a component. And I'm going to say, I want to get a certain type of component that is attached to this object as well. I want an audio source type object. And what this is going to do is going to search everything attached as a component to this object. And if anything has this name as its type, or this type itself, I'm going to get access to it through source. And then I have some functionality that I can reference in this audio source. And the one that I'm going to use right now is called play one shot. I'm just going to play some audio file once. And I'm going to attach a clip, a single audio file, explosion sound. And I'm going to have that be attached here. Now, I'm going to do something really quick. I'm going to comment this out, and I'll explain in a sec why. But I should be able to, whatever I attach as this handgun audio sound here, now I have this explosion sound that I can connect up. I should be able to hear it play. And what's the one that I want here? I have some sounds. I think for this one, it was maybe the flare gun. Let's go with this for now. So I'm going to attach that sound file for flare gun that should be triggered when it hits something. Let's see what happens. There we go. Awesome. And that bullet just triggered another sound. That was a little bit odd. If it misses, it doesn't trigger it. What's happening here? Well, I had to remove that destroy object on collision script. So sometimes it's going to keep bouncing around until it kind of disappears on its own or clips through the ground. So why don't I just keep that script node in for destroy the game object? Well, let's see what happens if I keep that destroy game object in place here. I am going to shoot, and there's no sound. Interesting. What's happening here is that this audio source is now connected to my script. It exists in the context of this script, of this object, in fact. And when I destroy it, it also destroys the audio source component that's responsible for playing that sound effect, meaning that as soon as it's destroyed, the sound effect stops. That's not the behavior that I want. So even though this is a great solution in some contexts, it's actually not one that's going to work for us here. I'm going to comment this out for now because I'll just keep it as a reference for you right now. But I need to actually play the sound in a bit of a different way. Luckily, I have some functionality I can do so with. I'm actually going to access the audio source base class, not an audio source object. I'm just going to say, hey, all audio sources, is there something that you can do to help me? And this is a beautiful method called play clip at point. And this is actually going to allow us to see a sneak peek of some more advanced sound design functionality that you may want to do a deep focus study on more later on, called basically positional sound or 3D sound. Play clip at point is actually going to create temporarily a sound file at the exact place in the world where the object hit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this explosion sound at the position my bullet hits the object at. And then I'm going to destroy the game object. But this clip now exists externally of this object. So it's going to continue to exist. And in fact, the way this method works is it exists as long as the sound file is playing. And once it's done, it gets destroyed automatically. So we're in the clear. Things are going to sound a bit different now, however, because what this allows is that if I shoot something really far away, the sound is going to be generated from that faraway point. Meaning, I now have a kind of a stereo depth to my sound. See how it's way quieter? Oh, I missed one over there. The closer I get, the louder it goes. So now I have positional sound that allows sounds to be triggered from different points in the 3D world. Pretty cool. So you could go ahead and attach sounds to your other object. Maybe I could attach different sounds to my laser. You can attach it to your own, but there's a few different strategies for getting sound effects up and running in your game experiences.